Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Ottawa Senators and how, barring a catastrophe, they look set to make the playoffs for the first time since 2017. But before we get started with that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So Ottawa has played 77 games right now, and usually at this stage of the year, you're thinking they aren't really in the hunt, and if we're being honest, at this point of the year, they're probably eliminated. However, at this stage of the season, this year, they look like they're not only safe, but they're probably actually going to be in the picture, and that is amazing. Not only that they might be in the picture, but they might have a chance to breathe and say, oh wow, we aren't the last team in. It's incredible as they are sitting pretty cushy in their first wildcard spot and look set to be the 7th team to make it in the Eastern Conference. And I think there's a lot of things to like about this team right now. You look at the fact mainly that they have got success going for them over a sustained period. You go back to a lot of the videos where I talk about Ottawa this year, it's been more about inconsistency, but they've been able to, again, since the beginning of March, find that. They have gone 13-4-2. I'll say that again, 19 games, 13 wins since March 1st. That ranks 4th best in the league in terms of points percentage. Again, you got to think back to some other teams and how they've done, like the St. Louis Blues winning 10 games in a row, and it just makes you say, wow, it is good to know that they're able to be up there with some of these other teams that are incredibly hot. Now, Ottawa's may not look as fancy as that, but still really good. And then I think another thing that I like about this as well is they may have had some losses in there, obviously 6 losses in that time, but they've not had a losing streak of 3 games or more since late February. That is a really good thing. You also realize too in this time that they have beaten 4 teams that are verified to be in the playoffs at this stage of the year, that are going to make it. I should say that have clinched a spot during this run. Nice to know that they've been able to do that. Had a close loss to the Washington Capitals, a team that's been really good in this time as well. And you just understand too that this has been a team that's been really good at home, which is nice. They are 24-11-2, I think. I could be wrong there. Something seems a little bit weird with that, but I do know that they are top 10 in the league in terms of points percentage, and their final 4 games are in Canada's capital, so that means this is going to be a team that is playing at home, that's done well at home, that's going to be well rested entering the playoffs, which again gives you a lot to be pretty excited about going into the playoffs, knowing that this is going to be the best Ottawa team since their run in 2017. Now, are there some bigger concerns for this team? I don't know if they're necessarily bigger, but one of the things that we could probably point out here is Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, and then Claude Giroux haven't had big points totals, and this is something where you look at it, the 3 have combined for 19 points in their past 19 games. That is not a lot, but I think on the flip side of that, you can look at it and say, well, some of the bigger names on Ottawa's roster haven't really been performing at a crazy level. As a super annoying guy on a motorcycle drives by, he lives just a couple streets over and I can't stand him. Anyway, talking about that, it is good to know that when your stars aren't shining, you are able to win. Specifically, I think for Ottawa especially too, because of the fact that this team has failed so many times and had so many shortcomings, even when some of their better players have produced well. So that is good. But I think there are a couple other things you could probably throw out there too. Out of their 19 games, only 6 teams out of the 19 games are headed to the playoffs, clinched a spot. So you do kind of wonder about the strength of competition. On the flip side of all that, I think there is a lot to be said about a lot of these teams being in the East for the wildcard hunt. Detroit, Columbus, some of these other teams. So it's not like they've been playing teams they have nothing to play for. There's still a lot to play for at the moment, but it is still something you could say it's just hard gauging what the strength of competition is and how that'll stack up when they play a really good team in the first round. And then something else that we'll probably throw in there is the fact that they played in a lot of close games. It's not necessarily a bad thing as you get into the playoffs, and as an underdog, understanding you're probably going to have to play in a lot of those closer games. But when you look at the fact that there is not that many playoff teams that they played in that time, and they've had a lot of 1-goal games, probably a little bit more worrying, and then also you got to play in a more stressful environment, and it's just a little bit tough because then you start to think about what's going to happen if they get rocked in the first game of a series. As this motorcycle, I think, is literally about to come back again, and I'm going insane. But kind of looking all at this, you would really start to worry about, well, if the Stars don't produce and they're playing in these close games, who do you think is going to win? Well, it's probably going to be the team that is a higher seed. And in Ottawa's case, they could be one of the last couple of teams in the playoffs out east. That's not necessarily unsurprising, just one of those deals where you say, might be some cause for concern going into the playoffs. That all being said, I think we're all aware that this is practically a lock. MoneyPuck.com gives them a 99.99% chance of making it in, so practically a given. They would need to lose every game in regulation, then they would need some other team to win every single game, win out, and the reality is there's just a bridge you can only close this far into it. And I think that maybe a team like Columbus, you could kind of say that it's a little bit too far of a distance. I think everybody from the Islanders up would be kind of in that contentious spot, but I still think that there's no way that the Sens go pointless through the next 5 games and then somebody else is able to go on a heater. And from what we've seen, I don't really think that's going to be the case either, besides Ottawa and Montreal. No other team's been able to kind of get going when they need to. So are the Sens about to have a really incredible choke job and then another team finally show up in the final 4 or 5 games of the year? Probably unlikely. And so I think for the Senators, the gap is big enough to where even if Montreal, who's on a 5-game win streak, was able to pass them, the Sens will make it into the first round, and that is something that is really big for them. Doesn't matter where they finish. I think that this is just really good to have a season where not only are they headed to the playoffs, they've already secured 42 wins, which means more wins than losses in a season. I think this is amazing. They have the potential to have a better regular season than that 2017 team. Mind you, the 2017 team is remembered more for the playoffs instead of the regular season, as I don't even think they cracked 100 points on the year. But for this current day Sens squad, it's about getting there. It's about, building up on the wins as they close out the year. They play some teams like Chicago as well. Maybe that could be kind of a nice win. And they just want to build into something. They play Montreal too, which I think is actually going to be a really good game because both these two sides still have something to play for. And even if it's not necessarily so much about playoff seeding, it's about pride and beating another team that is a quality side. Montreal did just get the most recent win against the Senators in the game that they played against. But I do think that the Senators are a team you don't really want to play for a variety of reasons. Like we already talked about, a team that's good at home, that's going to be well rested with their final 4 games being at home. A team that is young and motivated, but kind of different compared to some of these other young teams. You think of guys like Brady Tkachuk, as well as some of these other guys that have been around for a little bit for the Sens. Not only are they good, they're matured, but they've never got to play in the playoffs. I think this brings something extra to it. It's not just, we are one of the younger teams in the league that is looking to bust brackets. They're a team that's like, we have been out of the picture for so long. We got to try to capitalize on everything we've got right now because you never really know what's going to transpire. And I do think that regardless of how this season ends for the Sens, it is something where they want to make it next year. Otherwise, this would look more like a fluke, and you don't want that. But it's been an incredible season, which is also culminated in them having the most shutouts in the league right now with 10. They've still got 5 more games. Maybe they'll get another one. They just recently had one against Columbus Blue Jackets, which I think is a great sign for the Senators. Beating a team that still has something to play for, beating them 4-0, mind you. And for Ottawa, again, things have come to culminate into a really good year. Maybe this doesn't end in anything crazy, but maybe with the way things are shaking up right now, they play, like I said, a team like Toronto in the first round, where Toronto, playoff failures of the past, Ottawa and them, not a lot of travel. And like I said, they go on in the second round motivated, not very tired or fatigued from a lot of travel. Where could we see a replay of what we saw in 2017 with this team? I don't know, but it would be really cool. So for all the things that have gone wrong for Ottawa in a good long while now, seeing a lot of these players leave and have success elsewhere, and just knowing what could have been with the team that they had and they weren't able to keep together, it is kind of nice to see this new era kind of turning over. As my wife texted me, and I keep getting interrupted during this video, and it is unfortunate. But just hoping that this can be something that extends over into a couple more weeks, or even if they get knocked out, if they just have a good series where you say, this is the future, and this is going to be something where we are here to stay in the playoff mix, and not even the playoff mix, but in the playoff spot, is what you want to hear. Ottawa, I am locking them in now after being really in doubt for a long time. There's no way that they fall apart, but if they do, we're going to clip this segment of this video. Anyway, what do you think is going to happen with the Ottawa Senators? Where are they going to finish in the standings? And do you think that they're going to be one of those sleeper teams going into the playoffs? Do they make the playoffs next year? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you'll folk, you're right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.